Good evening, everybody. I'm Josh Welch with Film Independent. Great to see you. Thank you all for being here tonight. Without further ado, join me in welcoming the one and only Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake, thank you.
Forgive me, this is the first Q&A I've done in 4 years, so I'm trying to get used to the director's chair again. I slip off. Forgive me.
Thank you for being here, and congrats on the film. It's so fantastic.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
I just want to talk to you.
Okay, I'm hanging
I'm
up.
just out for a drive, sweetie, okay?
Is there someone with you?
Uh-huh.
Does the person you're with know you called us?
No.
Who do they think you called? Your child?
Yes, sweetie.
Does the person you're with have a weapon?
Yes.
I need the color of the car, okay? When I say the right one, say it's fine. Red? White?
It's fine.
There is a scared little girl whose mother has been abducted.
I need a better location.
I'll get it.
How will you get it?
I know Emily's with you. Where are you going? I need you to pull the handbrake hard. Pull it.
I had seen the original film, Gustav Mahler's original film, out of Sundance, and as soon as I saw it, I immediately thought, first of all, I thought he was an incredible filmmaker, and I thought, who is this guy? I really want to meet him, and then I thought I thought the film, something in my bones told me that transposing that idea into an American context would have a power that it didn't necessarily have when it was in Denmark, set in Denmark. And something made me feel like we could redo it, so we got the rights from my company and developed the movie for 2 years, and I think Pizzolatto wrote the draft, and then at a certain point, we were looking for projects when the pandemic hit that we could possibly make, even when it looked like nothing could be made. And this really fit the bill in a lot of ways. It was contained, it had one person in it, and I had always wanted to shoot it in 5 days. I had always had that vision of wanting to do the film in 5 days. We settled on 11 days. But it all came together, and when I pitched it to Antoine, I sent it to Antoine, who was a friend, because we have made another movie together and have been looking for something to do for a number of years. I said, we can shoot this. I know you're only available for 5 days in the coming year. We can shoot it in 5 days, so when you read it, just keep that in mind. And he read it, and the next day he called me and he said, I'm in, let's do this.
Wow. So was it from the beginning for you always going to be set in Los Angeles?
No, that was an Antoine ad. Initially it was in another city, and he just said, just the nature of Los Angeles, obviously it means a lot to him. He felt it as an extension in some ways of Training Day and that space and that world, and then I had done a movie here also called End of Watch, which is written by David Ayer, who wrote Training Day, and so there were these connections. We felt Los Angeles culturally was the right space to put it in. He wanted to communicate where we were where I don't permanently live in the city anymore, but I grew up here, so I'm sorry I keep saying where we were, but where I think the city is and where the state finds itself, and particularly the West, with all of these wildfires. So I think there was a lot of things that he felt they were really appropriate for Los Angeles.
Even though it's all set in that one room, it feels like such an LA story, and I mean, for the reasons you just said, and you've done a lot of great LA films like End of Watch and Nightcrawler. This one feels of a piece of that in a way, where the city is such a key part of it.
Yeah, I mean, LA at night, there's nothing like it. And I think I don't know why, but I think there's something about the surface of Los Angeles during the day. I think that there's, obviously, we are known, or it is known as a city that has a lot of shine and a lot of presentation during the day. And I think at night, what is presented is potentially maybe more of a truth about what's actually happening with us and underneath all of us. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So I tend to gravitate towards those spaces maybe. And I think Los Angeles is so dark and complex in so many ways, and it's endlessly cinematic. And I don't think I'm the first person that felt that way or feels that way about it.
It's crazy to hear you shot it in 11 days. Even though it's contained in one location in you, it's still, that's kind of staggering to hear. Could you talk about what you just, like the nuts and bolts of shooting during COVID, how you approached it? Because you were shooting in the fall of 2020?
Yeah, October of 2020, yeah.
So that was like the height of it. Things were...
It
one of the
was.
heights.
Yeah, it was. Every day was a potential lockdown, you know. I think we had decided, obviously, that we were going to shoot it in 11 days. We were at the beginning of all of this, and I think none of us really knew what would happen. I think we thought it was advantageous that we were going to shoot it in a very short period of time, and then what we realized was the Friday before we started shooting on that, we were supposed to start shooting on the Monday, Antoine was near someone who tested positive for COVID, so it meant he had to go into quarantine. And so
This was right before production?
This was 2 days before we were supposed to start shooting.
Wow.
So it meant, obviously, given all of the restrictions and all of the insurance issues and our bonding, and now on top of it, the COVID insurance, we didn't really know what was going to happen, and would we lose cast that we had asked for favors? I mean, I had called up Paul Dano, and I had called up my brother-in-law, and Antoine called up Ethan Hawke and said, "You want to come work these days?" I said, "Sure, we're free." We had this incredible cast, like, about to work, and we had a director who wasn't able to be there. And so everyone sort of put together ideas, and we came up with, what if we put Antoine in this van? There's a van. We had a wonderful group of producers that had they had screens on it, you know, and he could communicate to the set through walkie-talkie and also through particular communication devices in the van. And we set it up. Applause for the van. Absolutely. Not the white van, but the van. And so we set up this van at his house, and there was this delay, this quarter-of-a-second delay between his sound and his image, and he was going crazy. He's like, "I can't do this." We did this on a Saturday. And then someone suggested, what if we hardwire the van to the stage where we were shooting and park it a block away? And then he'll be away. He subsequently tested negative over 3 days. So he said he's okay, but he has to stay in quarantine. So let's just do that. So we hardwired his van a block away to the stage, and he directed the entire movie from a van down the street.
That is insane. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we felt that way when we've discovered it worked, you know, we applauded too. It saved the movie, and it was such an interesting process. I mean, I don't want to speak for him, though I've heard him speak about it. And he would say that we were both very isolated, both the character that I play and him. And somehow he was in Joe's position too. It was this weird thing where there he is in front of these 3 screens, and he's directing a movie about a guy in front of these 3 screens. And we would FaceTime in between. So we separated the movie into 5 parts, 5 acts essentially, each 20 pages. And we shot those 20 pages each day, 20-minute long takes. So we would choreograph and rehearse like you would something theatrical, and then we would roll for 20 minutes. And we did about 8 to 10 takes a day, sometimes more. And then we would, you know, get into specifics. And we, you know, of every setup, that's how much we would. We'd have 3 cameras sort of all the time. And so, man, all the technical issues of this movie were very interesting. All the actors were on Zoom. They would come in, they'd be on Zoom, and then our first AD would cue them, and then I would hear them in my ear but not see them, and Antoine would have them on a computer. And
You mean everyone that you were interacting with on the phone?
That section, yes.
Was on Zoom?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you had Paul Dano in Australia. You had Peter Sarsgaard in New York. You had Riley Keough in Los Angeles. You had Ethan Hawke in New York, 2 blocks away from Peter Sarsgaard. in the coolest part of Brooklyn. And you had all these people and they were queuing them. And what I didn't realize was that Zoom, as we all probably know now, doesn't really allow for interruption. And I don't know how you all feel, but I feel like some of the best part of acting is rhythm and interruption. And Zoom was dictating that for us. It was like the beginning of a Zoom when you get on and everyone tries to say hi and everyone's like, and then your yellow square lights up and you go, oh, hi, it was like that, and throughout a scene. And so we had to navigate our way through being restricted by this new weird medium. And it was
So
all in
did
my
you
ear.
have it in your ear?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and my director down the block, So it was really
Was he in
interesting.
your ear as well, or you would talk to him between takes?
He was not in my ear. He was on a walkie. There were 3 walkies. There was Q walkie, a walkie for him to note me. And then when we were setting up, when we were changing setups, we would either FaceTime each other, so I could put on an earphone and hear him quietly, and he could note me quietly. Or I'd go outside, climb a ladder over to the top of the wall, and he would come out of his van down the block, and he would scream notes at me from the street, like Romeo and Juliet. It was quite an experience. But I will say, in all seriousness, I think we were all so grateful to be working and so grateful to be there that we would have done anything, and we pretty much did, to make sure that we could make this movie.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So your performance, you're in literally every frame of the film. It is tight on your face a lot, and
Sorry about that.
yeah. I'd love to hear you talk about how you built the performance, because how do you modulate that over the course of a film? Are you just doing sort of moment-to-moment work with the other actors and living through it, or are you thinking about the scope of the film as you're going through each section?
Well, we always thought of it very theatrically. Antoine mentioned Sidney Lumet a lot, and we always thought that this was a character that existed in his own reality. In a lot of ways, the movie is a fantasy, right? The admittance at the end, the ability to communicate that kind of truth in the position he's in is a fantasy. That is not something we see people in his position do. And it's necessary to communicate that, and that's what we both felt. I think that's what Antoine felt very strongly. And so it meant I knew that it wasn't existing in a space of normal. It was existing in a space of a sort of dreamlike space. So emotions could be much bigger. I knew I could calibrate it probably instead of 1 to 10, I could calibrate it 1 to 13, maybe 14. And all the other people in that space were sort of living in a mundane world. So, from the beginning, I think this guy's holding on to a lot, and there's a lot of toxicity in him, and he's putting it onto other people, like blame, 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 blame. And the first section was really labeled sort of blame. And then slowly, I did just specifically, when you're working with wonderful actors, start to listen. A lot of the performances, what I love about, I had spent a year doing a show off-Broadway first and then on-Broadway the year before, and it was a monologue. And my favorite part of that show was when I could viscerally feel the audience switch on and their imaginations turn on, and I disappeared. It was like I started to speak and tell a story, and then I disappeared, and their life started to appear to them. And I thought, this is what we could do cinematically, and I just knew a lot of the movie was about listening. And I knew that at a certain point, if you have good enough actors on the other end of the line, that listening would become the audience creating their own story. And I had faith in that. And then a lot of it was also where we were in the world at the time, right. The pressure, and being able to exercise all those feelings of everything that was going on.
It's interesting you mentioned Sidney Lumet. I found myself thinking about him watching the film, or I don't know,
Because you were bored, or because
I was bored. I was like, I should
Oh,
I should really watch Dog Day Afternoon. No, I don't know. There was I found myself thinking about film noir in certain segments of this. It felt very noirish, like the guilty man, the broken man. Obviously stylistically in the lighting, but your character felt noirish. But then also like Sidney Lumet, who does these dramas with very like intense singular characters, but where there's like social issues playing throughout at the same time, which clearly you had that here. And was that in the Danish film as well, or was it probably a different set of issues?
Again, I think in my mind, something in my bones, and also with Antoine, I think we felt in America, when you put the idea of mental health into a story, it changes it, because what it does is it calls out our systems, which are broken. So
Yeah.
No, it wasn't the same. It was not the same sort of. It was a much subtler, extraordinary film. I mean, it's an extraordinary film, but I think, like for instance, having another performer perform Hamlet or perform whatever slew of characters, which we do on the stage all the time, I felt like those social issues changed when you changed the person, when you changed the location, and we both felt it necessary. So yeah, I mean, Antoine, the first thing Antoine said to me was, he was like, this movie's about mental health. And I said, yeah, I mean, do you want to do it? But yes, I felt the same.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about this backstage, but could you talk about sort of the cameras and like how it was shot physically throughout? There's a different range throughout the film, but again, because it's just on you, it's your face. Were you sort of working with the cinematographer? Like, did you know what lenses he had on you at any given moment, or how you were framed in the shot, or were you just doing your stuff as an actor?
Well, first of all, I mean, when you're working with a visualist like Antoine, I'm not really concerned about any of that stuff. I just know he has a language, and he's so fluent in it, and he's such a wonderful visualist that I just don't have any, you can relax. I don't think about that, though. When those 3 cameras are on you and the 6 or 8 people are around you all the time who are in charge of those cameras, and then slowly as we shot the movie over the 11 days, the camera started to move closer to me, and the lenses were changed so that by the end of the movie, the cameras were 6 inches from my face. I was surrounded by cameramen and women. It was like, if the pressure wasn't enough, it was like all I was worried was I was just going to fog up the lens, like in the shot, But there was this extra additive pressure of the choreography of the cameras that Antoine always knew he was going to do just through lens choice. And so I was stuck. There was a tension from the operators. They were tense. The focus was tense. Capturing me was tense and right. They didn't know what I was going to do. There were many moments where it was extraordinarily frustrating, and also there's stuff going on in your ear. You have by the end of the movie, you have 3 phones, and by the way, none of them really ringing. You just have to remember who's calling and if you're calling someone, right? And I was so grateful at a certain point that I was just talking to Emily for a big section of the end, even though everything that we were talking about was so terrible that I didn't have to answer a phone, But I think that was the pressure of that. Was thought through, the actual physical pressure of the cameras, and also just entrapping me, and embarrassing me, frankly. I don't find it, I'm not an actor who finds it like, I don't love a close-up. It's not something I'm like waiting for, there are many actors who do. They wait for their close-up, and that's their thing. It's just not who I am. And so when someone puts a camera that close to my face, I feel embarrassed, And so I felt very embarrassed, you know? I mean, we all know, you look, I mean, yeah. You guys know what I'm talking about.
I think there's that long conversation between you and Emily at the end that's incredibly powerful, just emotionally what's going on, like with what's going on with her, and then the moment when you tell her that you killed a man. I mean, that, like, I was thinking in there, so you were hearing her live. That was Riley Keough. So you were hearing her, she was on Zoom, and you were hearing the audio of that and playing off that in that moment.
Yeah, everything was live.
Wow.
We tried many things. We tried recording it. We tried, with the scene with the young kid who only had a number of hours, we recorded her. And then that didn't work all the time, so then we had someone just reading lines off camera for a little bit of time. But yes, with Riley, and I will say, you know, she, you know, and I don't think I'm saying anything that is not known, but she's been through a very, very difficult couple of years. And there are currents of the same ideas, loss that she's gone through in this story, and it was so brave of her to face those things. I think sort of cathartic for her to face those things, and so we would be in the middle of these live takes, and all of those things that were going on that she was feeling. Not that she wanted to do that, but she's been through things like that with people she loves. So brave of her to put those feelings out there. And so, yeah, everything was live. And I think some of those big feelings that you see, and they do play differently in a close-up, but I think those big feelings, like, they were all true to our exchange in the moment. And oftentimes, it's so weird. We would cut, it'd be a long, long take, and then I would, like, call her on the phone, you know? Be like, are you okay, you know? So it's like,
Yeah.
from a phone to a phone to a phone to a phone, and then my fucking director's on a phone, and everyone's on a phone, you know? I mean, that's how we all feel, I know, but it was like that. It was just like, and then it was like, you know, and then you get off, you're going home, and you just call everybody on a phone again, and then you're alone in a room calling people on phone. So it was a really interesting experience.
Wow, yeah. No, I mean, no, you're describing what life is like now. It's weird to be in a theater with humans, you know?
It's
like,
so great.
We're
it's
not
so
on phones.
Wonderful. It's like so great.
Jake, I did want to ask you about, so you've been producing a lot lately, and in fact, more than I was aware. I went to your IMDb page, and I was like, oh my God, he's like produced on a lot of films that you act in, but then you've also been producing, well, some of which you're also in, but great independent films like Wildlife and Relic, and kind of smaller films with more up-and-coming people, or, you know, I'm just, and this, of course. So I'd love to hear you talk at all. What's drawing you to producing? What do you enjoy about that?
Nothing.
It's horrible.
No, it's not true.
I mean, is it like a necessity where it strengthens your position as an actor, or is it because you enjoy the putting projects together? And
well, you know, I think initially what I started to realize was when I made Nightcrawler, the film you talked about, when I made End of Watch, I was adding things producerially without sort of realizing it. Sort of started on End of Watch because I was there for so long in preparation. We prepared for 5 months for that movie as actors, and inevitably all the choices you start being involved in the choices. I also come from a storytelling background more so even than a performing background. So telling stories and being a part of it and watching it is in my blood somewhere. And so with Nightcrawler, I realized, you know, it's really interesting to be there early and be a part of those discussions and then help out. And then we started this company with my partner Reva Marker, and we both have this vision of helping people tell their stories, the stories that they want to tell. And to me, that's really exciting. I love the idea of helping people bring their stories to life, and if I can be a part of it and, you know, get a little credit for it, I love that, you know. And I also love the down dirty process of making movies. Like, I mean, the shiny stuff's nice. Like, it's a nice shirt and stuff, and someone gave it to me or whatever, and that's nice. But I really love making movies, and I just want to be in it.
Yeah.
And I want to be in the shit, So that's the opportunity to do it, because actors come in so late. I mean, that's what I've realized. We think we're so special, and it's like we've really come at the very last minute,
Right.
Like the very last minute,
Yeah.
So we should really shut the fuck up. But no, I was saying, but I do think that's what I love is being there at the beginning, being through all the mucky stuff, all the stuff when you it's a wonderful thing, even in the terrible parts when you lose your, you think you're going to lose your director and you have to figure out how to do it, and you all have to do it together. Nothing like teamwork.
So, I mean, to that, are you, in addition to producing, are you thinking of directing? Is that appealing as well?
It is appealing, yes. Yes, it is appealing. And I actually love actors so much. I know I just sort of talk shit, but I really just love them so much. Part of my thing as an actor is I think I tend to love watching the actor across from me, sometimes more than what I'm doing. And I would say sometimes I think it's been speaking to me for a long time that I should listen to that thought.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Jake.
Thank you.
Thank
you all
everybody.
so much. Thank you.